he's perfectionist, as almost everyone we've discussed would fall into that personality characteristic. They're a perfectionist.
For half a century, one name has been a Hollywood legend, Nicholson. It's a name that brings up images of rebellious charm, terrifying intensity, and a gleam in the eye that promised both genius and danger. A shadow so vast it could swallow. A man whole. For decades, the world has watched his son, Ray, and wondered, could lightning possibly strike twice? We all saw the resemblance, that uncanny echo of a grin that could chill you to the bone. But what no one knew was the secret battle he was fighting just to find his own light. It was a fight against a legacy that felt more like a curse. And now, the details are finally coming out. A confession from Ray himself, and a quiet admission from Jack, that together confirm the crippling pressure we all suspected was hiding just behind those famous sunglasses. To really get the weight on Ray Nicholson's shoulders, you first have to understand the man who put it there. Jack Nicholson isn't just an actor. He's a cultural monument. He's the unfiltered, unapologetic eye of Hollywood. From the defiant rebel Randall McMurphy in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, to the sinister grin of the Joker in Batman, and the bone-chilling madness of Jack Torrance in The Shining, Nicholson didn't just play characters, he became them. He lived in them with a chaotic energy that felt both thrilling and terrifyingly real. His life off-screen was just as legendary. The notorious house on Mulholland Drive, the permanent courtside seats at Lakers games, the reputation as Hollywood's most charismatic ladies' man. It all blended into the myth of a man who lived by his own rules and became one of the most celebrated actors in history for it. 12 Oscar nominations and 3 wins. He is, by any measure, royalty in an industry that worships its icons. And into this kingdom, on February 20th, 1992, a prince was born, Raymond Broussard Nicholson. From the moment he entered the world, he wasn't just a person, he was a legacy. He was the son of Jack. And with that title came a crushing, unspoken expectation. Everyone who looked at him saw his father's ghost. They saw the heir to a throne he never asked for. The question wasn't if he would become an actor, but when. It was treated as a foregone conclusion, a destiny written in his DNA. But for the boy who had to grow up in that colossal shadow, it was a prophecy he would spend years trying to escape. Growing up as Jack Nicholson's son was never going to be normal. It was a life lived in the reflected glare of a constant spotlight. While other kids had birthday parties at home, Ray's youth was spent on red carpets and courtside at sold-out arenas, a familiar fixture next to his impossibly famous father. The world knew his face before he knew himself. He and his older sister, Lorraine, were what industry insiders call good set rats, completely comfortable in the machinery of Hollywood because it was the family business. To his credit, Jack tried to build a foundation of normalcy in all the chaos. He made a point of having dinner with his kids every night, a ritual of fatherhood in a life that was anything but typical. He read to them, took them to the opera and ballet, and showed them a world of art and culture far beyond the boulevards of L.A. But that normalcy could only go so far. The shadow was always there. The name Nicholson opened every door, but it also hung over every room he walked into. In a recent interview, Ray opened up about this strange paradox, admitting that growing up in the Hollywood bubble often made him feel deprived of a regular family life, making him resentful of the very thing others envied. He confessed, "You think being born in it, you would understand it. But I think I actually understood it even less." This confusion created a deep-seated desire to be anyone but his father's son. While Jack was the definition of cool confidence, a man who commanded attention just by entering a room, Ray wanted the exact opposite. He described himself as a chubby little kid who got picked on. While his sister was popular and beautiful, he saw himself as the nerd, grim. His escape wasn't the stage or the screen. It was the quiet glow of a television. "I just wanted to play video games," he admitted. "I just wanted to be invisible when I was younger." The world, however, wouldn't let him be invisible. The pressure was constant, and it came from all sides. He recalled how everyone around him treated his future as a done deal. The refrain was relentless. "Oh, you're his kid. Oh my God, you have to be an actor." This external certainty had a powerful oppositional effect on him. It became the one thing he was determined not to do. He said, "Naturally, it was 100% the last thing I wanted to do, ever, ever, ever." He dreamed of other lives, other identities that were entirely his own. For a while, he wanted to be an astronaut, a job about as far from a Hollywood backlot as you can get. Then, he thought about becoming a sports agent, a role that would keep him close to the Lakers games he loved, but safely behind the scenes. Anything but acting. Anything but stepping onto the stage where his father was already a god. The world saw a clear path for him, paved with family connections and genetic destiny. But for Ray, that path looked less like an opportunity and more like a cage. He wasn't just resisting a career, he was fighting for the right to his own identity. As Ray hit his late teens and early 20s, the question of his future got louder. The chorus of people insisting he become an actor was impossible to ignore, and an internal battle began to rage. This wasn't just teenage rebellion anymore. It was a profound and painful struggle with who he was and the terrifying idea of failing on the world's biggest stage. This is where the secret struggle really took hold, defined by a phrase Ray himself would later use. Crippling pressure. He confessed in a candid interview that this pressure was something he put on himself. It was a relentless internal monologue of comparison. Every acting class, every audition, every thought about trying was immediately measured against an impossible standard: his father's career. He recalled his mindset back then, questioning himself after every single performance. Was that good enough for 7 Oscars? This wasn't just a fleeting thought. It was a roadblock that made progress feel impossible. How could anyone possibly succeed when the benchmark is one of the greatest acting careers in history? The weight of the Nicholson name was a double-edged sword. On one hand, as he acknowledged, it got him a foot in the door. He had a manager from a young age, and the industry definitely knew who he was. But this advantage felt more like a trap. It just fueled the nepotism narrative, the idea that any success he had wouldn't really be his own, but just an inheritance. This was a charge he was desperate to avoid. More than anything, he wanted to be seen for himself, to earn his place on his own merit. He stated, "I always wanted to be able to audition as just Ray." He didn't want the casting director to see Jack Nicholson's son. He just wanted them to see Ray. This desire for an authentic career led him to take what he called baby steps. He made his first, almost anonymous appearance in the 2006 comedy The Benchwarmers, a tiny role that let him dip a toe in the water without causing a media tidal wave. But even those small steps were filled with anxiety. He just didn't feel he had the innate boldness, the larger-than-life confidence that seemed to be required for a movie star, especially one named Nicholson. "I just don't think I had the confidence," he admitted to People magazine. That lack of confidence was made worse by the fear of not just failing, but of tarnishing the family name. The stakes felt impossibly high. It wasn't just his career on the line, it was his father's reputation. He was painfully aware that any misstep, any bad performance, would be judged not just as his own failure, but as a blemish on the Nicholson legacy. This created a paralyzing fear. For years, he kept his distance, flying under the radar, taking small parts in films like The Outsider and shows like Mayans MC, slowly building a resume but never fully stepping into the spotlight that was waiting for him. The irony was that deep down, a part of him knew the truth. He'd later realized that the desire to act had always been there, buried under layers of fear, resentment, and pressure. He was running from the one thing he was perhaps meant to do, all because his father's shadow felt too big to escape. Every story of struggle has a turning point, a moment where everything shifts. For Ray Nicholson, this wasn't a single dramatic event, but a slow realization that finally clicked into place. It was the moment he stopped running from his father's shadow and decided to see if he could make it his own. He described the moment of clarity as an epiphany. After years of anxiety and holding back, it finally hit him. Then, it just dawned on me like, what the hell are you doing? You've always wanted to act, but you're just too scared or you don't feel worthy, he told USA Today. It was a moment of shaking off the old resentments about his childhood and finally facing what he truly wanted. He was scared, but he was more scared of the regret he'd feel if he never really gave it a shot. This new determination led to bigger roles. He appeared in the critically acclaimed Promising Young Woman and Paul Thomas Anderson's Licorice Pizza. He took a leading role in the Amazon Prime series Panic, a title that feels pretty ironic given his journey. With each role, he was building his own body of work piece by piece, proving to himself and to the world that he was more than just a name. But the real, undeniable turning point, the one that grabbed everyone's attention, came in 2024 with the horror sequel, Smile 2 Wes. It wasn't just the role. It was the marketing. Billboards for the movie featured a close-up of Ray's face, twisted into a wide, unsettling grin. And in that grin, the world saw it. It was unmistakable. It was his father's grin. The same wild, unnerving, iconic smile that Jack had burned into our minds as the Joker and Jack Torrance. The resemblance was so uncanny, so chillingly perfect, that social media exploded. People who didn't even know Jack had a son were doing double takes, wondering if the legend himself had come out of retirement. For Ray, seeing his face on those billboards with that specific smile was transformative. It was the ultimate confrontation with the comparison he had feared his whole life. But instead of running from it, he embraced it. He said that moment shifted everything for him. He realized, I can do this and be my dad's kid. I don't have to hide. It was a public declaration. The Nepo baby argument, which had always been a source of anxiety, was suddenly flipped on its head. Fans and critics didn't see a cheap imitation. They saw an eerie and iconic passing of the torch, and this is where Jack Nicholson's confirmation comes in. While Jack hasn't sat down for a formal interview about his son's struggle, his past words, seen through this new lens, are incredibly revealing. Years earlier, in a 2008 interview, Jack showed he understood his son perfectly. He described Ray as someone who might not tell you everything he's doing, but who has a quiet, unshakable determination. Once he's got his mind set on something, Jack said, he's going to stick to it and take care of business no matter what me or anybody else says. That wasn't just a father's pride. It was a confirmation of the exact independent spirit that made Ray resist acting for so long. He had to do it his way. More recently, Ray has talked about his father's quiet support. While they don't talk much about the craft of acting, a deliberate choice by Ray to find his own way, their relationship is built on love and respect. Ray calls his father my hero and my inspiration. Jack's confirmation isn't in a headline. It's in his quiet belief in his son's determination, a belief that gave Ray the space he needed to fight his battle and come to the family business on his own terms. With the pressure out in the open and the internal struggle reframed, Ray Nicholson is now in the most exciting phase of his career. He's no longer defined by what he was running from, but by what he's building. He's forging his own path, and it's fascinating to watch. His recent filmography says it all. In 2025 alone, he starred in 2 major films, Novocaine and Borderline. In Novocaine, he plays a menacing bank robber, and in Borderline, he's an unhinged stalker. These roles, along with his breakout moment in Smile 2 Kicks, show a clear pattern. Ray is drawn to complex, dark, and intense characters. It feels like both a nod to his father's legacy of playing iconic villains and a genuine artistic interest. He seems to have inherited a fascination with the messier side of human nature. What's different, though, is his philosophy. While his father's generation was often focused on the art and prestige of it all, Ray has a refreshingly modern and down-to-earth take. "I could care less whether people think I'm a great actor or not," he stated plainly to USA Today. "I want to be engaging and entertaining. Ultimately, it's a service position. You want people to enjoy what you're doing." This approach frees him from the pressure of having to be great in the same way his father was. Instead, his goal is to entertain. It's a humble, practical view in a profession often drowning in ego. He's also finally made peace with his identity. He's no longer running from the comparison. He's leaning into it with humor and pride. "I am my dad's kid, and I'm super happy about it," he has said. He knows it's obvious, stating, "He is my North Star. If I didn't want to be compared to my dad, I would have been a veterinarian." This acceptance shows how far he's come. He gets that the comparisons are inevitable, but they no longer define or limit him. He can be inspired by his father without being intimidated. Their personal relationship has also matured. Ray emphasizes that they are very different people, shaped by vastly different times. Jack born in 1937, Ray in 1992. He knows that what affects him isn't the same as what affected his father. This is crucial. It lets him take advice from his dad, but also recognize when he needs to figure things out for himself. The greatest piece of advice Jack ever gave him was simple and timeless. "To thine own self be true." By being true to himself, Ray has finally found his footing. He's found a way to make acting a love language between him and his father, a shared passion that connects them. He's building a career on his own terms, choosing roles that excite him, and developing a work ethic that is entirely his. The story is no longer about the crippling pressure. It's about resilience. It's about a man who faced down one of the most intimidating legacies in Hollywood and found a way to not just survive, but to thrive. He isn't just Jack Nicholson's son anymore. He is Ray Nicholson, the actor. The dynamic between a legendary parent and their child is one of the most fascinating stories in Hollywood. We've seen it play out with the Douglases, the Fondas, and the Sutherlands, and each story is unique. What other celebrity kids do you think have successfully stepped out of their parents' shadow? And who do you think struggled the most with the weight of their family name? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're fascinated by the hidden stories of Hollywood, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next video. Ray Nicholson's journey is so much more than another story about Hollywood nepotism. It's a human story about identity, legacy, and the struggle to define yourself in the shadow of a parent. For years, the world suspected that being the son of a titan like Jack Nicholson was both a blessing and a curse. Through his own candid words, Ray confirmed that it was. He opened up about the crippling pressure he put on himself, the anxiety of living up to an impossible standard, and his initial resentment of the very industry that was his birthright. His story is a powerful reminder that even with a famous name and every door held open for you, the hardest door to walk through is often the one in your own mind. Ray's journey wasn't about rejecting his father, but about finding a way to accept his lineage without being erased by it. He had to walk through the fire of self-doubt and public expectation to emerge on the other side, not as a carbon copy, but as his own man. Today, Ray Nicholson is a compelling actor in his own right. He carries his father's unmistakable grin, but he wears it on his own terms. He's a man who calls his legendary father his hero, but is wise enough to forge his own path. The story of Jack and Ray Nicholson has a new chapter. It's no longer just the story of a legend and his son. It's the story of two actors from two different generations, bound by blood and a shared love for their craft. Ray has finally stepped out of the shadow, not by escaping it, but by learning how to cast, one of his own.